Welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast. We're so glad that you're tuning in with us today. So I have here three of our pastors. One is missing behind the camera today. He's not missing. He's volunteering behind the camera.
He's serving diligently. Yeah.
But happy belated March. We are here to talk about something that is happening for the first time, I think. Right? First time.
Yeah.
Within our church community. And that is we are hosting a ministry fair coming up this Sunday. So that would be what, March 29th?
I believe.
That's right.
Yeah,
Palm
March-
Sunday.
That's right. Yeah.
March 29th. And so we just wanted to take some time to explain it. So that way when you do come in on Sunday, because we're hoping that you'll be there, you can stop by and you'll know exactly what it is that we're trying to do. So first things first, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey
Good
there.
afternoon.
That was a very soft
me.
hello.
Hello.
So let's talk first about what is a ministry fair. So Dave, I'll let you take that one. What is a ministry fair?
What is a ministry? Well, I guess as we've been sharing on Sundays, I sort of equate it to the idea of like a job fair a little bit. So we're going to have an opportunity with a bunch of tables set up in the gym after both first and second service. And each table is going to represent a different ministry that's serving and ministering here at the church. And so all different ones, right? We got security ministry, and we got the welcome booth, the media team, and so on and so forth. And so you can go around to all the different tables, and you can check out what they do. If you have interest, maybe you feel you have giftings in that area, you're being called to serve in one of those areas, get all the information you need, fill out an application, and then you get to see Pastor Willie.
You get to see Pastor
See
Willie.
Pastor Willie.
Well, that's worth it just for
Right,
that. I mean,
yeah. Sign up just to hang out with Pastor Willie. Right?
I get to see him all the time. So we'll have about 10 to 12 ministries there. People will be, I think we're having poster boards of photos and things like that, some flyers that have the information of each ministry. And there'll be people at every table from each ministry who are actually serving in those ministries, and you can talk with them and get some more information. But let's talk about why volunteer?
I mean, selfishly, volunteering is going to bless you. I mean, really, the way God works things out is we think we're sacrificing, or we think I'm going to, and it is a sacrifice, right? You have to take time, and there's, a dozen volunteers may be represented, but there's even more, more different ministries that we have. And, I think the reason is, a lot of times people see the front-facing ministries, maybe the more public things, but there's a ton of ministries behind the scenes. And we actually made a list, and we have 148, which we're not even sure if that's exhaustive, but as best as we can tell, 148 people who regularly volunteer, which is great. And what those people, I think, have found out is that, you take a little bit of time away in this, but you get to know other people within the church when you serve them. You get the great blessing of being used of God. And again, we think it's a sacrifice. I'm going to show up and do this. And we realize in those moments how blessed we are that God uses us oftentimes in ways that are unanticipated. I think we underestimate the power of certain little things because there's nothing little. We do it all to Jesus. Are we asking people to serve CFC? Sure, yeah. But we're really asking people to serve Jesus as part of their walk. It's just part of the Christian walk. Jesus said, we mentioned on Sunday, if anyone could have said, I come to be served, it's him. And he said instead, I come to serve. And if we are followers or apprentices of Jesus, we ought to do what he does. And I think what we find in that is a real, we talk about purpose and meaning in our lives. And when you're used of God and you show up and God's able to work through you, you'll find that it's going to be a great blessing in your life. And you're going to realize, again, sometimes, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be a greeter, or I'm going to, maybe do something. I'm going to set up for hospitality. And you think that that's it. But then somebody asks you a question. You have an opportunity to engage a new family. And in that moment, maybe you pray with somebody and you realize that, hey, we're all in this thing together. It's Jesus' church, and we're all here to serve him, So, I think, again, I would encourage people to serve because it's needed. because it's what God calls us to do. But I also encourage people that when you do that, you will be blessed. I promise you that. I promise you that you will be blessed by serving.
Amen.
Yeah. So my question for Sam, because he's not going to get away with
Just looking good, just sitting there looking good.
Amen.
So as you are overseeing children and youth ministry, and so I would think that the ministries you oversee probably have the majority amount of volunteers, right? Like you have the larger number. Talk to me about, as a pastor and as a ministry overseer, right? How do you protect people's time in serving? Because I think one of the concerns that a lot of people have, and the reason why they don't serve, is the time that it takes away from them, right? Some people are very busy with work, right, throughout the week, and they're like, well, I only have Sundays, and I just want to come. I just want to, be fed. I just want to, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be overworked. It's too so. And I think we're all on the same page, but I'll just have you answer it. Like, how do we protect people's time as they're serving?
Yeah. I mean, there's practical elements, and then there's also, everything's practical. But, like, there's also spiritual elements. So for kids' church, it's once every 3 weeks. Like, you're not serving every week.
Right.
And then if you're able, what we encourage is, if you are going to serve on that Sunday, that you would go to first service where you don't have to serve. That way your soul is getting fed, and you do have time, to hear the word and to worship, so you're really not giving up that time. But it does take some extra time, and for youth group, it's every other week. And then there's some people who want to serve every week, and so as long as they feel able and it's healthy for them, I'm not going to stop you from coming. I want you to come, but just that's in place. Like, listen, we know this is going to take a lot from you. We're not asking you to do something easy, right? It is hard, but there are going to be times of rest, and we implement that into the schedule for them. That you're not going to serve every Friday. There's going to be moments of rest, and then I'll have conversations. I'm thinking of one that I just had, but of conversations where, listen, it's okay to take a step back for a little bit. It's okay to not go full steam all the time, because you need rest. I mean, something that I just feel like over the last couple of years that's been coming to my mind was, why was the punishment for not keeping the Sabbath in the Old Testament death? You know what I mean? Like, if you didn't keep the Sabbath, you will die. Like, why? Why? That's crazy. And it's because it's what's so important about that. And Jesus, God, he actually said that's a sign of the covenant, was the Sabbath. And I think when we're not taking Sabbath and we don't implement it into our lives, what's happening is we're saying, God, I don't trust that you're the one who makes this all possible, and that you don't actually need me to make everything happen, And so me taking a step back and resting and implementing that into my schedule, especially as a volunteer, is saying, God, I recognize that I don't need to be at everything. And that, God, this is actually your work, and that you're the one who's actually going to make this happen. But I'm being used of you, So I guess that is the spiritual element in the practical, is like, right. We implement rest in the schedule.
Yes.
But that is because we are relying on Christ instead of ourselves.
And I think what Sam brought up was really part of your earlier question of why service. And I've said before, a lot of times leadership, which again Sam touched on, is getting people who aren't involved at all involved, right. And getting people who are doing everything to stop doing everything. Yes. Now, the people that are doing everything are usually doing it because there's a need. So as people serve, many hands make light work. True. So as more people step up, then it doesn't have to be an every week thing, and you can have a healthy pace of once a month. To add to that, though, I mean, I think if we're all honest with ourselves, and my wife loves to remind me, we make time for what's important. Right. So a lot of times, and I'm not saying there aren't busy seasons, but I'm saying that some people's busy season has been a decade, right? We ought to make time Jesus expects us to make time to serve the body of Christ. That's not sort of an optional thing, right? So there should be space, and we can say we're busy, but how much time do we spend, doing fun stuff or watching Netflix or whatever it is? We're all guilty. So I think as part of our lives as mature believers, we try to find that balance and recognize that, hey, on the one hand, my whole life is ministry. Everything I do is for Jesus. On the other hand, I should be making some place to serve my local church. Can people serve every week? No, right? Not everybody can do that. But you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who can't find a couple hours a month, right? And so if somebody's pace is such that they came up with a couple hours a month, then there's probably a bigger problem there. And it's going to, eventually that's going to burn them out. And again, to your point about Sabbath rest, why is it so important? Well, because God knows that we can be like Martha, right? Doing.
I was just thinking of that.
And what does Jesus say? He doesn't say Martha's wrong, but he says Mary has chosen what is better. And I think, especially in ministry, we're doing, but are we sitting at the feet of Jesus? Because if not, then, who are we really apprenticed with,
Right. So to piggyback off of that, let's talk a little bit about how we also don't want serving to replace your walk with Jesus, right? So serving enhances, right? It enhances our walk with Jesus. It enhances our walk with others. We learn to love. We learn about ourselves, right? We learn things that we didn't realize were there under the pressure of maybe being in an uncomfortable position of serving where, you know what I mean? But talk a little bit about how serving is not meant to replace your walk with, that's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, particularly for us, and you guys hear me say this all the time, because I think it's very easy when you are a paid church staff person, when you get paid to be at church and do a job, to somehow think that that is a spiritual exercise. It could be. It doesn't have to be. It can become very religious very quickly. And we can substitute, well, look at all the stuff I'm doing for Jesus, but are you doing it with Jesus? Are you really doing it for Jesus, or is it just a task list? And we're all guilty of that. We can all want to get stuff done, but if we're not careful, so I think with us in particular, it's even more of a liability or a risk that because we're at church, I'm at church every day, but that doesn't mean I'm at church every day. And so I think what people have to look at is, again, the disciplines, the idea of solitude, of dedicating time to just be with Jesus, time of prayer, time of reading the Word for study, time of reading the Word for devotion, ways to connect with a group, to share a story so you're not isolated. So church isn't just something you come to, you get an hour's worth of sermons, and you go back, but it's part of your rhythms of life. I think the bigger sort of an invitation is we really should look at our entire pattern of living. We're looking a lot about this now. We'll be talking to you more about it. But it was called The Way. It was a way to live. And our pattern of living is often the result of the culture or our own ambition and not necessarily the pace Jesus has set. So I think for all of us is an invitation to say, look, we all have 100 things to do, but is that 100 things that Jesus wants me to do? And that's discernment, that's prayer, that's having brothers and sisters that know you well enough to say, I had this opportunity, or I'm praying about this, and we've had conversations with people that said, look, you're doing too much already. Relax. Don't. So I think for everybody it's different, and it requires maturity and discernment. But I think to your point, serving should be filling to us. It should be joyful. We shouldn't see it as a burden. That doesn't mean there aren't days that are tough. That doesn't mean that we don't show up if we have responsibility. But that means that we need to see it in the just like giving, right? Giving is an act of worship. Serving is an act of worship. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be done under compulsion. Instead, it should be done as hey, the recognition of Jesus has done so much for me. When we're grateful, what do? Well, hey, man, thank you. What can I do for you?
Right.
And it's really that, right?
Sounds like the gospel.
It sounds a little bit like the gospel. Listen,
Come
you've
on,
done so
give me
much
the
for me.
gospel.
What can I do for you? It always leads there, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, all right, Dave, your turn.
My turn.
So as we are in a season of community groups, and we're really trying to help our church family connect, right? Go a little deeper in relationship and be comfortable with being vulnerable. And, for a lot of us, we've created, it's a safe space where you can share, where you can pray, where you can be honest about things. How is that different, I would say, than coming together for a ministry and, because it is different, right? You're maybe for community group, you're gathering for a couple of months, a couple of weeks, and you're growing in relationship and in friendships and all of these things. And again, there's a vulnerability there. Whereas when you're gathering in ministry, you're under a purpose, right? You're there to, you're there to welcome people, right? You're just here to welcome people. And so maybe you don't have that same connection. And so sometimes, for me, I feel like it can be harder to connect with people in that area of ministry because you don't see them as much. You don't have the opportunity to be vulnerable. And so it's a lot easier, I think, to rub each other the wrong way when you don't know each other, as opposed to you're in community groups, you're in these friendships, you're in these. So just talk to me about the dynamic of that.
Yeah, I mean, I see kind of both sides of that, there is shared mission of coming together to kind of execute on a Sunday, a worship service, and we're, in whatever area we're in, we're all kind of working toward a goal. But I would say don't miss the opportunity to get the intimacy that you get with the folks in that community group setting. It is, it's bigger than just a job. It's not like you're going to your job Monday to Friday kind of gig or whatever. You're coming to serve and to serve, for unto the Lord and to be part of a bigger thing that's carrying the gospel. And within that, though, you're on shared mission, and there is opportunity there. It's discipleship.
Right.
It's really within each of those ministries, there are opportunities to be, little tiny churches and discipleship ministries.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think you're constantly guarding against, kind of to Brian's earlier point, like there's two things. There's consumer mentality faith walks, where, it's all I'm going to receive. I'm not giving anything. I'm just here to get what I can get out of it, and it's all for me. And, a lot of times early on, maybe you need to be a consumer, but eventually you're called to be a contributor. God's going to call you to that. And then the other side is I'm going to serve every single week. And
God loves me more because I'm doing so
you're
much.
Going to make it workspace, right? So maybe you not necessarily thinking of it that way, but I'm going to serve the Lord so much that look what I'm doing. And, both things are wrong, right? It's like it's the legalism and the license side of things.
Right.
It's I have to do X, Y, and Z to be in God's good favor, or I'm in God's good favor, so I don't have to do anything.
Right.
And the middle ground is really the sweet spot, and all of that develops relationship. It's with Christ and with His people, and that's the thing that develops.
I will say from experience that I understand more the concept of bearing with one another through ministry work than I do through community group, or you know what I mean, because it's less time. You're when you gather together on a Sunday for a mission, you're about the mission, right? For the most part. There are times outside of that you can come together, like you're saying, but a lot of times we're about the mission. And so when we're all about the mission, a lot of times it's, preferences, it's personalities, it's all of these things. And so that idea of bearing with one another becomes a lot more real in that situation than it does when you're taking your time to actually be intentional about being about the person you're getting close to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I think, too, there is a bond that you can't form by just hanging out, and even digging into the Word together and praying together. There's I think maybe it could be more of a guy thing, but this, you have a common task and you get it done together. There's a bond that you create with one another. Yeah. That's how, I think that's mostly how guys bond. Is we need a common task. You know what I mean? That's why, let's go in the garage and work on a truck and not say anything for 3 hours
that's
to
a
one
total
another.
guy thing.
But walk out of there as best friends. You know what I mean?
Girls don't talk, and girls don't get together and are like, let's not
They
talk.
just talk
Let's
for
just
3
do
hours and
something.
get nothing done.
You guys don't
Did I
dig
say
holes
that?
together, no?
But dude, that's how I bonded with my dad. Let's go hunting. My dad would pick me up after school. I wouldn't even want to go. He'd find me in the neighborhood, make me get in the car, and we'd go.
Find you in the neighborhood.
Yeah, honestly, I'd be playing outside somewhere, and then we'd go into the woods, and we'd sit for 3 hours in the cold, And then I'd walk out of there. I'm like, I feel so close to my dad, and I haven't talked to him in 3 hours. You know what I mean?
That's a guy thing,
I think
for
like
sure.
serving it creates a common goal, and you're able to see each other's gifts. And the danger I think that you're bringing out with when we have to bear with one another is when we begin to compare ourselves in the serving. When we begin to compare ourselves, oh, they do that better than me, or
Well, that ministry is more important than this one.
yeah. But instead, when it's not legalism and it's not licensed, but it's gospel, you know, it's like, wow, all of this is just a freedom. I'm free to serve. I don't need to serve.
Right.
God's not going to think of me differently. And so I love the people I serve with because what a gift it is
Yeah.
for them to use their gifts and for me to use my gifts and to
And
do it
there's
because
nobody
of
that
grace.
God doesn't want to use.
Right.
There's nobody that He
Amen.
says, I want to use everybody except you. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's one of the great lies of the enemy, that somehow we think that we're disqualified. And that's not true, you know.
Yeah, oh, that's good. So God is doing amazing things in CFC. Our family, our church family, is growing. Every week we are just meeting new people. I got to pray with some people that I met for the first time visitors this past Sunday. And, you know, a lot of people that are coming in haven't been to a church or haven't stepped into a church for a really long time. And so I think we'll end with this question. But how can people decide where to serve when they don't know what their giftings are yet? You know what I mean? So we want the big idea is for people who are not serving to come in, see where the needs are, right? And then possibly be like, oh, I can help in that area. But what if there are people who don't have confidence and understand their giftings yet, don't know their giftings yet, and but want to serve? So how do we connect those people? How do we guide them?
I have a couple answers to that. So I think just being willing to get involved and finding the areas in need, and you're going to meet with Willie.
Yeah, if you don't like children, children's ministry is not for you.
Well, I was
we
gonna
can
say-
say that.
maybe it is.
Or maybe it is for you. Yeah.
Maybe it's for you, but not for
Yeah.
that children.
Well, hey, I went through that though. The exact question
Yeah.
you're asking. So I came into the church and I recognized reasonably quickly that I should be a part of the mission or whatever. And I remember I met with you too, and I remember you said that I think you and Lauren should serve together. And then it didn't kind of end up actually playing out that way though. And I met with Pastor Sam, and my first mission was 5th and 6th grade children's church.
Well, you
That-
really tried my
You
fire.
did that to him for his
Fifth-
first.
You wanted to
Yeah.
test him, make sure.
Wow.
He tested me out.
You
So-
want to
Wow.
learn? That's
like
that's
boot
the
I
camp.
need to learn.
He sent
So-
you to boot
You
camp.
want to
Is what he
swim and
did.
throw him in
Your,
the pool.
your daughter's in that class.
Listen,
Take it easy.
yeah.
That's why she said that.
Well, hey, the long and the short of that is I'm going to say that that's probably not where my spiritual giftings lie, right? So I made it maybe 2 weeks worth of it, or two service times.
I
worth of it.
lasted one service.
Yeah, I won't
one
say what
day.
they asked me, but they asked
Yeah.
me some crazy stuff, and I didn't really know I was like newer to 5th. I didn't know the answers, and it spooked me a little bit, but. But I was willing to get involved, and it kind of evolved from there, and I did all sorts of different things over the years now, but and eventually kind of through other folks, and a lot of times I think our ministry and our giftings are identified through other people more than maybe ourselves. But there's some practical answers to that question too. We have I have a ton of them. I carry them around in my briefcase. They're called spiritual gifts assessments, and it's kind of just like a self-assessment little quiz
Wait,
thing
you
that
have
you
a
take.
briefcase?
Yeah, man. It says Orvis on it. Remember you got me
Yeah,
one.
I saw it.
It's awesome. But we're not here to talk about my briefcase.
I don't know. Now I want to know about the briefcase.
But the assessment's it's simple. It asks you a bunch of questions, and as long as you answer honestly, there's a big scoring key at the end,
Right.
and it gives you kind of scores in all the different areas of spiritual giftings that are.
So are you
listed in
saying if
Scripture.
people are not sure, go see you?
Well, I'm happy to share those. Yeah, at any time.
And I think just being, we have, you got to be around for 6 months. And why is that? Well, that's to make sure that you're part of the community, that you are receiving, that you're in a season where you understand the culture. And then at that moment, just saying, okay, I'm available, and we're going to try to find a place to put you. But, some of the, when people are nervous, what if I don't have any, any particular areas of skills or interest, or I'm not quite sure. There's simple things. Sometimes we'll have just an event till you need an extra hand for the events.
Yep.
Or so there's always an opportunity to serve and meet people. And then oftentimes, I think a lot of times, to your point, is people might start serving in one area, and find as time goes on, there's another area that will fit them. But if you don't show up, you're never going to know anything. You know, when you were talking about you kind of tried this, the kids ministry, it didn't work. I think Edison said when he invented the light bulb, before he invented it, he found 100 ways that didn't work, right?
Right.
So if you want to find out where you should serve, maybe that starts by finding out where you shouldn't serve.
Right.
But you got to show up, and you got to be available, and God is going to do things that you can't imagine. And I would say if you show up with an open heart, allow God to show you maybe what you haven't yet seen in yourself. So it is an opportunity, I think, to grow and to not be intimidated. There's ways to get your feet wet slowly, not to jump in 5th and 6th grade. But
I was just going to say, we love our 5th and
yeah,
6th
yeah,
graders.
yeah.
I
Those are my
do have
people, man.
a
Yeah,
5th
yeah.
grader.
They're awesome. Yeah, they're
They
awesome.
are.
I just was
And now,
ill-equipped.
do you know the answers to those
I
questions?
could answer the question
You
today.
see,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
They
Yeah.
made a,
You
maybe
just
they,
put him in
maybe
there.
they pulled
He's
that out
ready
of
to
you.
go now. You just put him in too
Yeah,
early.
send
Now
me
he
back.
can
I'll be
go,
like,
yeah.
God doesn't
Here I
ordain
am,
things.
Lord,
He
send me
he
back.
allows certain things, but he didn't cause them. That's what I would have said. But anyway, yeah.
I will say that one of the things that I learned in my life about sharing the gospel is that if you can share it with a child, then you can share it with anyone. If you can talk to a child about Jesus, you can talk to anybody about Jesus. And in a way, it's not an intimidating way to start, right? Because if you don't know anything about Jesus, a lot of our kids are learning about Jesus themselves. And so you come right alongside them and you're learning together. And then you learn how to share the gospel. And then before you know it,
Yeah.
you know?
So often, me and Becky are in the back of the room as we're learning in the lesson. We're like, man, if we could just learn this too, huh? And it's
Right,
like,
right.
yeah, it's like
So simple,
you-
but so
It's
profound.
the same message,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, one more thing. I know I said one more thing before, but I'm doing you guys when you're preaching. One more thing.
one more.
That's
thing.
more Willie. I'll close now. I'll close now. So
burning
let's
with
just
anger.
talk the process, right? So you go to this ministry fair, you see a ministry that you're like, oh, I didn't know we had a need for that, or I'd like to serve. So you have to fill out a volunteer application, but there is a requirement, like you said, going back to
Right.
that.
Yeah.
You have to have attended the church for at least 6 months,
Right.
just so that we understand too that you are committed to this body, right? You fill out the application, and then you will get contacted by Pastor Willie, who's behind the camera being really distracting today.
Serving.
He is
Holding
serving,
up
but he
cue
is
cards.
being so distracting. You'll meet with him. He'll sit with you. He'll talk to you about your giftings. He'll talk about, so if you're interested in the transportation ministry, he'll talk to you about everything that entails. He'll get you connected with the person overseeing the ministry. He'll talk to you about the requirements of the days to serve and all those other things. And then you move forward from there, right? Is that pretty much, do I got that? He's writing. He's got his Sharpie. You could just say it out loud. We can.
Maybe you haven't been here 6 months, but there's other ways where you can serve.
Right.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you haven't been here 6 months, like I don't know if you heard what he said, but we do have areas in which you can serve. For example, we are preparing for our Easter egg hunt. We need tons of volunteers for that. We do an egg hunt every year at Campbell School in New Bedford, and we serve. It's for the community. It's for the children who attend school there. It's for the surrounding area, and we just preach the gospel and give out candy. Is basically what we do. And we're always, which I get mad at you for doing every Sunday, but that's what we're doing.
Well, and events are a great way to sort of, it's non-committal, and that it's a one-time thing. You get to serve. And then, if you've been coming for 5 months, sign up, get your name on the list,
Yeah.
sit down, meet with Willie, do the process so that we can get a sense of where
Yeah.
you may be interested and have those conversations. So there's, it can't be too soon to try and connect to the church.
Right.
We're going to find a place to connect you.
Right.
And I know we're talking about serving, but community groups are an important part, especially in a larger church where you can come and be anonymous. We don't want it. We want it to feel like a family. And so plugging into those smaller groups. And as a part of our groups, we have service as well. The groups will find ways to serve.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's, service is built right in, right?
Right.
Right. And there is a place for you. I think
There is
is
a
what we
place for all
can
of
really
us.
Yeah,
say.
even
There
service
is a
within
place
the
for
group.
you.
Like,
Right. That's right.
people that host at their homes, or there's leaders of each group. So, I mean,
Yep.
it's all service. So, yeah.
So any last encouraging?
Just get involved. I mean, I think, again, you kind of touched on the problem with being a consumer is that you're really missing out. You really are missing out. If you come on a Sunday and you're there for an hour and that's the entire of your spiritual diet, you are malnourished. You are ill-equipped to face the struggles of the day. You're not a part of the New Testament church as the book of Acts and the entire New Testament understands it. It's a call to be part of a people, to be involved with other people's lives, to have them involved with you, and to pray and to serve and to apply scriptures to everyday life, and to just come and receive for an hour and leave. You really are robbing not only the body of your presence, but you're really robbing yourself of what God has for you. And for that reason alone, I would say, give it some time, plug in and watch what God does in those relationships.
Amen. And give out
Sure.
candy.
The gospel.
Right.
Give out candy in the gospel, right,
gospel.
Sam?
Yeah. All I
It's
talked
like
was
the
the
two
gospel
greatest
now.
things ever. Yeah.
The two greatest things
The gospel
ever.
and candy. Top
And
two.
coffee.
we give-
Coffee's gotta be
Coffee's
there.
good.
We give people Jesus and the Zoomies all
That's
in the
right.
same
Yeah.
all on the same day. Well, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you at the ministry fair.
Amen. God bless you.
God bless.